A lot of people talk about boundaries as if they're a list of hard and fast rules. And I want to challenge that because it's not how I approach it with the clients that I work with. And it's not how the leaders that I work with get boundaries to actually stick. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I'm Zoe Thompson. I'm a leadership and performance coach. I help leaders to be more efficient, more effective, so that they can go home on time and take the big week off. Zero work, zero stress, zero guilt, because they know they've got systems, processes, and a confident, self-sufficient team in place to keep everything going when they are absent. Now, boundaries is a big part of that. It's a huge part of leadership as well, not just the boundaries in terms of how you want to lead and protecting your values and your principles and your standards of behavior, but also in setting those boundaries that help you to go home on time, that help you to be able to step away from the office for a week, knowing that actually you don't need to be at the center of everything for everything to happen. Let's talk about what boundaries are. Now, boundaries are the invisible line between you and other people. It's the line that protects what matters most to you, is your values, your principles that you live by. And when you recognize what is behind that boundary line, you are really clear on what it is that you are asking people to respect, but also what you are protecting and preserving. So we need to be really clear on that if we are able to communicate that to other people. We also need to understand what is behind other people's boundary lines so that we can respect that too. Now, sometimes they will clash, and sometimes we need to have conversations to find a joint solution, to find ways forward that respect, preserve, and protect what's behind the boundary line for other people as well. And this happens a lot in the workplace. And as leaders, you need to know what yours are, but also understanding what your teams are is going to help. For a lot of people, the boundaries are protecting health, family, energy. We will have very individual elements as well, but there's often a lot of similarities in what people want to protect in terms of what people feel is most important for them in life. Once you are clear on what is inside that line, it is much easier for you to be able to communicate it and to protect it. This is where it gets slightly different. So I see a lot of people talking about boundaries as being a list of hard and fast rules. I don't work after 5 o'clock. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do the other. Now, that can help in terms of the messaging being very clear. However, doesn't always play out like that. And when you've got a list of hard and fast rules, it then makes it very difficult to be able to show up to that consistently, because sometimes with different people or in different situations, you want a slightly different approach. So whilst you're always protecting the same thing, sometimes your behavior and how you show up to protect those things will be different with different people and in different situations. And that's why I don't believe it can be a list of hard and fast rules. It can't be a case of you saying, I don't work after 5 or I don't work in a certain way, because sometimes it will be to your benefit and you will need to work in a different way or approach things in a different way to protect what is behind that boundary line. Boundaries and authenticity often overlap when we have these conversations, because the boundaries are protecting what is most important to us, and what's most important to us is what makes us us. The principles, the standards of behavior, our ethics, our morals, our values, that's all what makes us as an individual. It is part of what makes us authentic. And for us to lead in an authentic way, we need to know what is most important, and we need to know what alignment looks like for us. I'm going to share with you an exercise that I do with my clients, because I think this will help you to get clear on what your boundaries are in your leadership. First of all, you're going to draw a big circle. And inside that circle, I want you to write down what is most important to you. Ideally about 3 things. Not what you think should be in there, but what is actually in there. So as I mentioned, for a lot of people, this comes down to health, it's family, it's energy, and it's the principles or standards that you live by. What is most important to you? Not just personally, but professionally as well. And we bring ourselves to work, so it should probably be very similar things. But again, you're protecting it in different ways when you're at home and when you're in work. I do this for myself too. I do this for my business and the work that I do. My calendar is only open certain hours for clients to book in to protect my time and my energy and the things that are most important to me. I protect my evenings and weekends. However, sometimes when there's a specific event, I will flex my working time to be able to go to those events or host those events. It may be the same for you. If you want to work in a certain way, or you know that you need to work in a certain way to show up in the best possible way, then that might be what goes in the circle. Once you are clear with what is in the circle, then you can start to look at how you want to show up to be able to protect what is behind that boundary line. Okay, so you've drawn a circle, you've written in that circle what is most important to you. Now, this is where you can start to look at how you can approach your boundaries differently. If you were to treat this as one fixed rule for every situation, you will find that the boundary will only work with a certain person, in a certain context, or in a certain situation. And we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to be consistent in how we show up and how we protect what is important. The consistency is in the behaviors. The behaviors will not always be the same. In one situation, it will look one way. In another situation or with different people, it will look another. The consistency is in how you show up, not in the specific action. To give you an example, one of my leadership clients had always talked about their boundary being not working past a certain time. However, they also had young people at home and the parenting demands were changing and the care demands were changing. They were needing to show up in a different way at home, which meant they really wanted more flexibility in work. They were finding that hard and fast rule of I don't work past 5 o'clock meant that they then needed to be in work at a certain time. But actually, for them to be able to support their young people at home and attend some things that were most important to their young people, they needed to start a little bit later and therefore wanted to finish a little bit later. This is where the hard and fast rules don't work. If we always say we want to finish at a certain time, or we don't work evenings, we don't work weekends, we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't do the other, and then we go against that when it suits us, that's what other people see as inconsistent. And they'll kind of second guess and say, okay, well, there's one rule for us, but there's another rule for you when that doesn't apply. When we are able to identify that what's behind the boundary wall is our family, and we can then communicate that actually our time with our family is really important, then we can always refer back to that to say, I'm working a little bit later today because I have a family event this morning that I would really like to go to. Or we might say, I'm working a little bit earlier today because there's a family event this evening. Or it might be that we say, I need to be away at 5 o'clock this evening because there's something going on at home that is really important to me. So we're able to follow up that communication with, this is the action or this is the behavior because this is important. As a human to human response, we might not like the behavior, we might not like the action, but if we can understand the intention behind it, then that's what we can often relate to. It might not be convenient to me, but when you communicate that you're doing it this way because this is important to you, your family is important to you, or then that's slightly different. That makes it relatable to people. People can understand that and they are more likely to respect it. And that's what we're asking for. We're asking people to respect what is important to us. So we're communicating the intention behind it. We're communicating what is important rather than communicating a list of, I do this and I don't do that. and those hard and fast rules, which are much harder for us to be consistent with, let alone for other people to understand what we are asking them to respect. That's how you work out what is in your circle. And when you look at what is in your circle, then you can start to look at different situations, different scenarios, different contexts, and you can think about what that might look like. It also means that you are more consistent with your behaviors and you are also more consistent with your communication. Now, that's yours. We also, as leaders, need to understand what's in our team's circles too. This is the next layer for those of you that are in leadership. The more you understand the individuals on your team, what makes them tick, what is important to them, and therefore what is inside their circle, the more you understand what matters to them. And that is going to help you to lead them as a team of individuals rather than that collective. Some people will communicate their boundaries quite clearly. Other people do find it more difficult. And so one of your responsibilities as a leader is to help to understand their boundaries so that you can help them to strengthen those boundaries, communicate those boundaries so that you and others understand them. This might be an exercise you get your team to run and then share within the team. For most people, it is going to be something that they are open to sharing. And if we share with other people what's inside that circle, that helps us to understand what it is that makes them tick, what's most important to them. It also means that from a leadership perspective, we are able to understand those principles, and then we can not only encourage them to protect those boundaries, we can also respect them up front in the way that we lead them and encourage them to be the best version of themselves when they come into work, which is what we want. What's really important for me to share here is how important boundaries are for you to be an authentic leader. People talk about boundaries being selfish, and that's not the case, especially if you are able to flex and adapt those behaviors to protect your boundaries. Then you're showing up and saying, this is what's important. This is what I'm asking you to respect. This is what I want to preserve and protect for me. You're also looking at how you can adapt those behaviors in different scenarios and with different people. It allows that little bit more negotiation within that. This is what's important to me. However, I'm also wanting to understand what's important to you so that we can flex and adapt for a joint solution. You will have heard me say this before. It's I'm okay, you're okay. In the way that we know that leaders need to balance the people are okay with the business is okay, we also need to balance that we as a leader are okay and the individuals in our team are okay as well. And a lot of people hold back on boundaries because they feel it's letting somebody down. Often it can be the opposite. When we align our boundaries with what's important to us, with our values, with our principles, with our standards, help to manage our expectations, and we are able to communicate that clearly, we allow others to do the same. And this is another great example of leading by example, of showing up as the best version of ourselves, of showing up and communicating, this is what's important to me, this is how you get the best out of me. That encourages that psychological safety for those on our team to do the same. When we have misaligned boundaries or no boundaries at all, when we don't communicate them, when we are not consistent with them, that is unsettling for individuals in our team. When we show up and one day saying, well, we don't do this and we don't do that, and then the next day we're doing it, it's confusing. It is not clear for our team, and it's not encouraging them to hold their own boundaries and communicate them. And it just doesn't give a great impression. And we want our teams to look at us and see us as the example and model how we approach things. It's really important that we are consistent and that we do this in a way that works for us, but also demonstrates a good way for others to do the same. Authentic leadership is really important. When we show up as a leader in a way that aligns with our values, it's sustainable. It is much easier for us to show up as our authentic self. But we have to know what that looks like to enable us to be able to do that. And when we don't do that, that's when the disconnect starts to happen. And that's when success looks great on paper and feels horrible on the inside. My measure of a good leader is somebody who is able to go home on time and take the week off. Zero work, zero stress, and zero guilt. And that is because they trust their team. They've got confidence in their team and the systems and the processes to continue that high performance when they are not there. That's the test for me of a good leader. It means you're efficient. It means you are effective. It means that you have created that environment where people have self-efficacy, they have the autonomy, they have the confidence and resilience to do what they are there to do. They have confidence in themselves, and you have trust in them to get the job done, even when you are absent. Boundaries plays a big part in making that happen. Saying that you have done your 8 hours and you are going home because your energy is important, and you know if you go home and get a good night off and you get that downtime, you get that rest, you get a good night's sleep, you are going to show up as a better person the next day. You're demonstrating that it's good to protect that. If you're staying for long hours and you're finishing and then you show up the next day and you're tired and you're irritable and you're making poor decisions, your lack of boundaries is sending a terrible message to your team. The more you hold those boundaries of working on what's important, showing up and getting your priority tasks done, being able to negotiate what comes into you, saying what works and what doesn't work, showing that you respect yourself is going to help your team to do the same. The more you show up with strong boundaries, the more your team will model the same behaviors. The boundaries is a big part of you going home on time and being able to take a week off. It's a big part of how you create that confident and self-sufficient team. They will learn to do the same. So, draw your circle, get very clear on what is inside it, then start to get clear on how you want to protect it. It's very intentional, it's very purposeful, and it is going to allow you to be an authentic leader, but also for you to demonstrate how to show up well in work. What sits within that boundary circle will always be the same. How you show up to protect it, how you show up to preserve it, how you ask it to be respected, that may change. Different situations, different people, that may change. You will always be consistent in your communication to say, I am asking to do this because this is what is important to me. This is what I would like to do because this is what's important to me. This is how I want to show up because this is what's important to me. The communication gets clearer, even though the actions and behaviors become more flexible. And what sits behind that boundary line has a much stronger protection, which means it is much more sustainable. Let me know how you get on with that. Start with yours first so that you can then communicate with your team how to complete the exercise. Think about how you might share that in your one-to-ones if you think privately is going to be a better option, or maybe with your team if you think it would be a good team building exercise. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you're in the leadership community, there is a workshop on this. So check out the resource library. It is in there if you want that little bit more detail. If you're not in the leadership community, the doors are open. We would love for you to come and join us. It's pay as you go monthly. There's no commitment, so you can join us for as little or as long as you want. It's a great way for you to have your leadership CPD, got monthly workshops, group coaching calls, and lots of resources for you to use. There is capacity for one-to-one clients if you are interested in working with me that way. And don't forget, there are also leadership programs for you too. So if you want a little bit more, get in touch. Let's book a call, have a conversation. If not, there are other free resources, lots of videos like this. There are blogs and there's the weekly podcast, which you can check out. Make sure you click subscribe so you don't miss out when the new videos are released. And I'll be back again with another one very soon.